Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And on tonight's show, I want to get into a lot of news as the Orioles open their new academy in the Dominican Republic. This comes also as the January 15th signing period rolls around, and the Orioles pick up several new prospects that we're going to highlight tonight. And that's all coming up here. But first, as we like to do at the top of our episodes, we're going to welcome a new member of our Patreon community. And with that, I will turn it over to Bob.
Yeah, absolutely. We got another patron sign up here in the off season. It's Tim Anderson. We know he's a free agent. He's looking for work. Well, he found some. He's paying us to watch our content. No, I really appreciate it, Tim. Thanks for signing up. And Tim will now get access to all the patron channels on the Discord. But even if you're not a patron, sign up for the Discord. It's a lot of fun in there. It's really popping off lately. I feel like it's almost so much talking, smart conversations that I can't even keep up with during the day when I'm working. So if you want to get in on that, and if you haven't already, we do have a YouTube channel. If you want to see the video, the live streams, hit like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're getting close to 500 subscriptions. We'd love to cross that barrier before maybe opening day. Who knows? But yeah, become a patron, support us in any way. We really appreciate it.
We always appreciate the support of our patrons. And with that, we'll dive into tonight's episode. And we'll start off with one of the bigger wins for this organization as far as player development goes in some time. And they've had a lot of wins lately, but this is a big one as they open their new academy in the Dominican Republic. This has been in development for a few years. The state-of-the-art facility is going to offer training space that should not only make it easier for the Orioles to sign players out of the Dominican Republic, but also help the players who are already part of the organization by giving them a place to work out in the offseason. Now, these academies are fairly prevalent around the major leagues. And the fact that we're now sitting here in 2024 talking about this is a byproduct of the fact that the Orioles were largely absent from the Dominican Republic and that part of the world for a long time. However, they have made significant strides in the last few years, which we're going to talk about a little bit in a few minutes. And this academy is evidence of that. So, Nick, I'll start with you here. We've been waiting for this for a few years. I think it was maybe 2 years ago that they first announced the plans for this academy. What is your reaction to it, and what do you think it means for the organization?
I think it's huge. It's like you said, it is a massive W for this organization. I think back to Eric Longenhagen and Kylie McDaniel's book, A Future Value book. It's still, some things are getting dated in the book. Baseball's evolving, but a lot of that book is still like fundamentally sound and good foundational knowledge, including probably my favorite section of that book was the international scouting and signing process chapters they had in there. Because like, I don't know about you guys, but when it came to this part of baseball, like for years, I'd maybe read the MLB Pipeline article. Like, these are the top 10 signings this year. Like, oh, this is the top guy. These are the top 2 guys. All right, I'll file those names away. But like, I'm not paying attention to this side of the game. So like, I came into this whole thing 5 years ago, almost 4 years ago when we started the show, honestly, really ignorant to this side of baseball. And like, but in that book, they talk about how like you go to these major showcases, these major tournaments, and they're like, the joke was, all right, we got 29 scouts here. It looks like everybody's here. Like, we can get started, because the joke was the Orioles weren't going to be there. And everybody knew that because the Orioles didn't care. I think like they even had to get approval. Like Orioles ownership had to sign off just to sign a kid for $10,000. Like, that's absurd. Like, oh, keep it clean. Go fall in the ditch. Like, you're not going to compete in the major league level if you ignore this part of the game. And now here we are, this facility. And yeah, what the Orioles are doing, it's nothing new, like you said. But again, it's brand new facility, state of the art, and it finally puts us on a more even level playing field. Like, and I kind of went through and looked back. I know we're going to dive into the specific class later, but you look back at Kobe Perez and Michael Elias's that 2019 class. And yeah, like you need 3-4 years ahead of time. There's handshake agreements with these kids, right? So you need to build those relationships beforehand. So we didn't expect too much of that 2019 class. Most of those players they signed, was like 27 players they signed, have since been released, including Luis Gonzalez, I think was the top name in that class. He just got cut. Unfortunately, Luis Ortiz passed away due to cancer earlier last year, but you still got a couple of guys kicking around there as like Delmarva depth, and some, I'd say two, like Moises Chase and Steven Acevedo are still like intriguing guys from that draft class. But you fast forward now to January 2024, they've got this beautiful state-of-the-art facility to attract talent. It's going to house these kids safely, let them train in a modern complex, prepare these guys for baseball in the States. Like, they're handing out multiple signing bonuses that rank among the top 30 or 40 in the class. And we're starting to see the first signs of life here with guys they've already signed, like Basayo and Luis De Leon, kind of trickle up and show real promise. I just think that we've come a long way in a very short amount of time in an aspect of baseball that can take a while to establish yourselves in. I think Kobe Perez is pretty well established here. And now with this facility, you've got a 4 or 5 year period complete now that you've established your foothold there. I would honestly not be surprised in the next year or two, we see the Orioles land a top 10, even top 5 player in the international signing period. Considering there's still a signing period, we haven't moved to a draft process yet. But I think this complex is a major step forward in making that happen in the very near future.
Yeah, you saw all the press there, the videos, the pictures. It looks incredibly nice. Obviously, I think if there's a silver lining to the Orioles getting off to such a slow start, and you talk about Orioles fans, you're ignorant to the international game. Well, yeah, we had no reason to learn about the process and all that with the Busciones and all that shady stuff. Hopefully we do get a draft eventually. But if there's a silver lining to being so late, it's that we probably have one of, if not the best facility now, just because we're the last ones to build one. So they were able to just really, make it great. I think they've been talking about it for 3 years now or so, that it was coming, that it was being built, and now it's finally here. And I think it kind of signifies, obviously, it's a slow build up. Like you talked about 2019, that was just like, get your foot in the door, see what you can grab off the scrap heap towards the end of the thing. But, we just did more and more. Last year we got Luis Almeida, the highest ever. Now this year we have 2 guys right around $1 million, one a little bit over, one a little bit under. And like you said, yeah, I think we're here now. Like, we're established in the international market. Kobe Perez is a known quantity. Samuel Basayo is a superstar in the making and way faster than people expected. Even Kyle Glazer, as some people went back and listened to that interview on our show a couple years ago. But yeah, it's also like, it's interesting is the Orioles not having like one of the top 5-10 guys, because when they rank these guys, it's basically just by signing bonus and not like scouting report and potential and all that stuff. Obviously, the more you make, obviously that means you're probably a better player. But is it a strategy that they got 2 guys around $1 million as opposed to 1 guy for $3 million? I don't know. I'd love to talk to somebody to figure that out. But yeah, it's just exciting that we're like officially here, the moment that we've been waiting for this facility, the academy, to be opened up. It's here, and we'll see if that makes it even more welcoming to players wanting to sign up for the Orioles.
Looking more broadly at the Orioles' international signing efforts since Kobe Perez and Mike Elias came in, I think the work that Kobe Perez has done has been remarkable when you consider that he basically had to start from the ground up. It's not like he came in and inherited a situation where the Orioles maybe had been, at least halfway active. They weren't active at all. And I think that what he's done in the span of about 5 years now to build this up from the Orioles basically being irrelevant in Latin America to now going out and regularly signing players for 7-figure bonuses, $1 million bonus plus, and guys who consistently rank in the top 30, top 40 of international prospect rankings says a lot, because you can't get from point A to point B overnight in that part of baseball. It takes years to build the relationships with these players to sign them. And that's a theme you see throughout the league. So the fact that Kobe Perez has been able to build this up in such a short amount of time is a testament to the work that he and his team have done. Yeah.
And even Basayo breaking out the way he has, look, we're seeing him. We'll talk about top 100 lists sometime next week, but he's popping up high on lists, and it just goes to show how tough this is. The only reason the Orioles signed Samuel Basallo because he had an agreement with the Yankees. I'm assuming, I don't know why the Orioles trumped the Yankees and were able to get him. I'm assuming the Yankees had to up an offer to another player to keep him in that class, and then allowed the Orioles to swoop in. Whatever the case, we'll happily take it. But it's just funny that the one guy that has broken out very easily could have been a Yankees superstar prospect right now.
Yeah, and looking at this class as a whole too, I didn't go back and like do the math and break down like the percentages or anything, but I feel like a lot of the earlier classes kind of skewed fairly heavily like Venezuelan classes. And I remember when we had Kobe Perez on and we talked about that, I feel like he kind of brought that stronghold with him from, or he come from Cleveland before he was with Baltimore, I think. So I think he kind of brought that stronghold over and was able to grab some guys early on. And he talked, I think he had said when he came on our show that time that I think he said he had just gotten back from Venezuela, or he was like, I'm going out to Venezuela in like 2 days or something. Because that's where he spends a lot of time throughout the year. And this year, though, I feel like it's a smaller class, but it was predominantly Dominican players. And I wonder if that's hey, we're going to bring in the local kids in this nice, fancy new academy and use this as it's like it's a recruiting tool now for Elias and Perez and the scouting team that's down there in Latin America. I think we're going to see, like I said, I think we see one of the top guys come in the near future, which would be nice. But again, at the end of the day, we can talk about specific players and dollar amounts. And yeah, it's really cool to see these guys get millions of dollars, $1 million or $2 million, or when are we going to land the $5, $6, $7 million big guy out there in the market? At the same time, like this organization is proven on the international side of things. Look at some of who are the top international prospects in the system are right now, other than Basallo, right? There are guys like Luis De Leon and some other guys who signed for like pennies compared to what Basallo got. And so it's going to be another avenue for where even if they don't land the big fish, they're going to be able to get down and find higher quality talent. And when you bring them into this player development system, it's keep replenishing that pool, keep replenishing that elite talent pipeline that's just, I don't see drying up in anytime in the near future.
Before we talk about replenishing your brain, I want to address Vivek's comment here that he notes that the Orioles kept around $2 million, a little more than $2 million left in this pool. And I think they've shown actually very recently why that could be smart, because they just picked up a Cuban outfielder for like $450,000 towards the end of the year, which was like a late, not expecting it signing. And it seems like he has a lot of upside. And we've seen them, especially with pitchers and arms. I feel like they'll kind of let these guys trickle in as the year goes on, because pitchers tend to pop up more than the positional prospects do. So, and who knows if Roki Sasaki gets posted. I know he's young enough. He has to go through this international signing process. I don't know exactly when he would pop up, but if you're the team with the most money to be able to negotiate with him and do that, then that's not a bad thing either.
Yeah. We don't know for sure exactly why there's $2 million or so left over. I imagine though, a lot of that could be due to, like you said, it's the last 2 years, this organization has been able to very, very late in the game grab a Cuban player. Like Cesar Prieto was like $600K, $650K. And like we said at the time of the signing, I saw a rumor, James Fox, I forget, he's White Sox prospect guy. If you're listening to this show, you probably know who James Fox is on Twitter. I think he had a rumor that apparently the White Sox were kind of interested in Prieto, but he was guessing that Prieto was going to go for like 1.2, 1.3, or even more $1 million if he was in the regular signing bonus or signing period. But he was so late in the game, no one had the money. Orioles got him for $600K. They signed the Sanchez kid this year, back in December, for a couple $100,000, right? Like, so maybe it is smart. And like you said, I hate to go back to the Houston model or whatever, but like wasn't that successful avenue that the Astros took, grabbing those older pitchers for lower dollar amounts later in the game? You build them up, every penny you need. You got a whole year. Like the signing period wasn't just Monday and it's done. It runs through the rest of the year. So plenty of talent can pop up at any point.
Yeah, Kobe Perez actually addressed that when he met with the media earlier this week, and I'm quoting from Danielle Allentuck over at the Baltimore Banner. He acknowledged that the Orioles have their eyes on some players and said, quote, "We're happy that we have some resources that we feel we'll do well with." So the Orioles, without getting the specifics of who they're looking at, clearly have some players that they're targeting. I don't think it means they're going to sign a player for $2 million or even $1 million, but I suspect that most of that bonus pool money is going to be spread out here over the coming months. And just what would the thought process be when you have to figure out how you're going to hand out $2 million?
It's a good point, but we know they're going to spend it, because why wouldn't you, right? That's, this front office is going to leverage every opportunity they have. But yeah, that's a tough call how you're going to manage that for sure.
If you're going to hand out $2 million to somebody this late in the game, you've got to have a magic mind. And I don't know about you guys, but baseball season is right around the corner, and I've been worried about not having enough energy to stay on top of work, family responsibilities, keeping up with 2 toddlers running around the house, and then dedicating enough time to producing the amount of content that we do, which always seems to be growing. We are a glutton for punishment and just producing more and more content, but we love it. But I've stayed on my Magic Mind routine. These small, all natural energy shots are super easy to use. They taste great. They've helped me cut out the afternoon coffee. And now that our content schedule is ramped back up again, I honestly haven't been worried about finding enough energy for the late night recordings and writings. Subscribe to our Substack. Magic Mind makes me more productive. It makes me feel more focused. I get more done in less time thanks to the neurotropics inside that improve attention, concentration, and cognition. Look, with all natural ingredients like matcha, lion's mane mushrooms, I would really encourage everyone listening to try it out as well if you're having trouble being at 100% some days. Honestly, it's a total game changer. And for everyone listening right now, we have a special promo code for you all to use. You can try this for yourself only during the month of January. Magic Mind is helping you crush your 2024 New Year's resolutions fully focused. Everyone listening can get 1 month totally free when you subscribe for 3 months at magicmind.com/JANOTV and use our exclusive code OTV20. It's OTV20. That's an extra 20% off, which gets you up to 75% off the final price for a 3-month subscription. This only lasts until the end of January, so hurry up before it goes away.
And with that, now we'll get into the recent January 15th signing period. And as they have in the last few Januaries now, the Orioles make some waves. The big signings from this signing period are shortstop Emilio Sanchez and outfielder Steven Martinez. Sanchez received $1.3 million from the Orioles. That was his reported bonus, while Martinez reportedly grabbed $950,000. The players ranked fairly high on international prospect lists, including MLB Pipeline, who had Sanchez 30th and Martinez 28th on their top 50 prospect list. Sanchez, a 16-year-old shortstop, while Martinez, an outfielder described as having very good raw power to go along with athleticism, a strong arm in the outfield. Anytime you're talking about someone getting into professional baseball at 16 years old, you have to look at all the caveats that they're years away from contributing at the major league level if they get there. And in fact, it will probably be at least another year or two before we see them play stateside. But the Orioles really adding to the floor and the ceiling of their already deep farm system with these 2 signings. So, Bob, I'll start with you. We'll start really with these 2 players. What are your thoughts on them as the headliners of this class?
Yeah, the more I read about them, obviously didn't know much about them other than, rumored names that they're linked to the Orioles. And Martinez especially, I think, came on the radar, I can't remember exactly when it was, a couple months ago, and it seemed like reports were that he's another guy the Orioles are stealing from the Yankees, essentially. Not sure if that's been confirmed or not, but he's like a big power hitting right-handed outfielder. I love that. You steal a power hitter, a guy with a massive raw power, and all you have to do is improve the plate discipline and hit tool, and you steal him from the Yankees. It sounds like Samuel Basallo 2.0 in the outfield, corner outfield, but we'll see if that happens. And Emilio Sanchez, he seems like another one of these Leandro Arias types that the Orioles, and honestly, I'm sure it's most teams love, the smooth hitting, smooth fielding, shortstop now, could eventually move to third or second base as he grows, but just seems like he's really solid across the board. And I think MLB Pipeline had him at 50 grade tools everywhere, but then a 55 hit tool. So yeah, just get these guys in as young as possible into this player development system that has continued to develop and churn out impressive prospects. And, I think these guys seem like they could fit the mold and be guys that end up on our top 50 countdown in a couple of years, actually, or this year, to be honest.
So I want to talk about Sanchez first. And we got to first talk about the video clip that Orioles player development Twitter account. It's always my favorite thread of the year because once the signings are announced, they always kind of do their scouting reports. They get their videos, nice, clean, amazing videos, and then kind of like 3-liner scouting reports on these guys, just a little baseline information. But Emilio Sanchez, in his clip, they're all kind of the same, follow the same script. It was like, what do you like to do in your free time? What's your goal this year? And then just whatever. My guy Sanchez said, in my free time, I like to do push-ups and sleep. So I don't know why, but I thought that was just hilarious. But like, we're talking about 16, 17-year-old kid here, like an insane amount of physical development that's going to take place. Some of that development is with guys is going to fall short because it's impossible to accurately predict what anyone's body is going to do at this stage of life. And like Zach said, we won't get eyes on them personally for like at least 2 years, but it's still fun to follow and see who kind of makes the big adjustments. With Sanchez, like, I like the swing from the left side. When I read Baseball America and Fangraphs reports on him, they talked about the power he already has with potential for more. The standout athleticism like Luis Almeida had last year may not be there, but he's a smaller, compact player with like real power potential who maybe has to move off shortstop as he moves up the ladder. And I think Fangraphs even described him as that high floor potential utility option type player. And you guys know I hate comps with a passion, mostly because I can't do it. But as I'm reading these reports, I'm trying to think about like, all right, so who could this guy be like peak Emilio Sanchez with the very little information I know about him? And I don't know if this works or not, but I'm envisioning like a Brandon Lau type player here, like average to slightly above average across the board player. He's not going to wow you, but he's just a good, solid overall player who, when he's healthy, is going to give you 20 to 30 home runs a year. And I feel like, I don't know, for whatever reason, those little blurbs and briefs we got on him, that's the kind of player that I'm kind of vibing here with Emilio Sanchez. Martinez, though, complete opposite of that. I think he's one of the guys I'm more excited to follow. One of the youngest players in this year's draft class as well, like a young 16, but he's already listed at 6'3", 185 on Baseball America. The dude is jacked. You watch him and you see like it's very easy to daydream about what this kid's going to look like in 2-3 years on a baseball field. Potential plus power, according to Baseball America. And it seemed like the issue was swing and miss in his game, and scouts were concerned about that, but also notes that like scouts had said he's already been improving on that. And like, I kind of got Thomas Sosa vibes with this guy, like a bigger, stronger Thomas Sosa. Maybe this year in the DSL, you look up at his numbers and like, yeah, they're not that great. He's striking out a lot. I don't know. But he gets to the FCL next year and the kid breaks out because he grew another 2 inches and added 30 pounds of muscle and he's settling in. So I think Martinez is definitely the higher ceiling guy. This is the kid that I think I'm super intrigued to follow. And like Bob said, it's another guy we swipe from the Yankees. And I did like the last note there I had on him was in some of the reports. I think it was Steve Molesky's write-up. I feel like a lot of these write-ups were kind of the same, though, just the same information. The scouting reports just passed along to the beat writers from the organization. But with Martinez, they said the Orioles were on him, and then he disappeared, a.k.a. he had the handshake agreement with the Yankees. For whatever reason, the Yankees backed out, and the Orioles sent a bunch of U.S. scouts down to watch him, including Ken Guthrie, who signed 2 guys that I don't know if you guys have heard of, Jackson Holliday and Heston Kjerstad, okay players in this organization, I guess, but he was their signing scout. And so I guess if you're going to get the Ken Guthrie stamp of approval on this Martinez kid, I'm all in. I'm behind Steven Martinez.
Yeah, I'm getting with Steven Martinez. It's a guy, a young kid, one of the youngest in the class, named Steven, Stiven. But instead of Steven Acevedo, who signed really late for cheap, but was like, a follow guy because he was so young, this guy's getting almost $1 million. That tells me, and that's another thing is, these scouting reports, who knows exactly when they wrote these up, and these kids, I can't even say guys, are still improving on a daily basis. So like you said, Martinez could have already started to close up some holes that some people would have seen. That's another reason why you don't get too hung up on the price, the dollar amount on these signings, because they might have agreed to sign for 500,000, and then the only people seeing him are the Orioles or whoever team has come up with that agreement, and then they blossom and develop more. They could end up being one of the most talented guys of the class, kids, by the time they're announced. So it's just, don't take away too much about how much they signed for and all that. But
Completely agree. That's a great point. And going back to Martinez specifically, you look at the scouting grades MLB Pipeline puts on him: 55 arm, 55 power, 50 hit tool, 50 field tool. Power in the arm for a possible corner outfielder, which most reports suggest that might be where Martinez lands, corner outfield spot. That's a great place to start. There's going to be a lot of development that has to go along with that. But if you've got, as Fangraphs puts it, the potential for, looking at the wrong report here, but Fangraphs has a positive report on Martinez, and MLB Pipeline does as well. So you're looking at someone with raw power, some defensive upside, and a strong arm. I'll take that profile any day, especially in someone who's 16, 17 years old.
Yeah. And we've seen, I can't remember his name off the top of my head now. I think it was like 15 officially when they signed, but the youngest kid in last year's class, third base, I think he plays third base, hit a couple home runs. He had like 5 home runs last year in the DSL, over the fence home runs. Orioles have had really good luck with the younger international signings. It's almost like they're following the same path as the domestic draft. It's like, go after the youngest guys in the class who are peaking at the right time. And because like these guys, they're playing games in Orioles uniforms for like the last 6 months to a year. I think that's like the tricky league. They're playing in organized games against other teams for a long time with Orioles coaches and Orioles personnel there following along. So yeah, these younger kids though, they're having a lot of success both domestically and internationally. It's kind of wild to see.
is that Joshua Lorenzo you're thinking of?
Yes, Lorenzo.
Yeah, love that kid.
Something just to point out with Martinez, I got his exact birthday right here. He won't turn 17 until August 8th. So the Dominican Summer League season will almost be over by August 8th. It's only going to have maybe 3 weeks left by that point, 2 or 3 weeks. So he'll be just turning 17 as that season ends. And I think that this is a good segue into the next point that I wanted to bring up. And it's something that we have said a lot on the show, but I think it's worth bringing up just to give our listeners additional context, which is that when a player's down in the Dominican Summer League, we don't have eyes on them. We occasionally will see video clips posted. That's about it. And the stats are just really that. They're stats, but there's a consistent set of stats that we like to look at, particularly with hitters. And Nick, you want to get into that a little bit?
Yeah, and I mean, Kobe Perez confirmed this. If you're going to look at the numbers, strikeouts, walks. And one thing too that I noticed is there are a lot of guys in, the Braylon Tavera class, the Andre Arias class, 2 years ago. I pay attention to the guys who maybe the first month of the season or month and a half of the season, they might be striking out at a high clip. They're only hitting like a buck something. They're not doing very well. But by the end of the year, you look at their month-to-month splits, like the strikeout rates just gradually go down, and the walks are up and the average is up. There are a lot of guys, the Edwin Amparos, those guys in that class, who they followed that role. And naturally, the final numbers didn't look great. If you just pull up their stat line, you're like, okay, this guy's nothing. There's really nothing there. You didn't look that good. But if you look at the splits and you see them progress, a lot of those guys performed really well in the FCL last year. So I think that's kind of a good indication of kind of what's to come with some of these guys. But
And we focus on the two big names from this class, but did anybody else that the Orioles announced on Monday jump out to either one of you?
Yeah, there was the two $500,000 signings. I want to talk about one of them, and I'm not even sure what his last name is anymore, but Jamon Brown, the Jamaican kid. That was awesome to see that he's listed as Dominican Republic, but I believe he was born and raised in Jamaica. To me, this kid, he's a shortstop, switch hitter. I love the little three listed scouting report that the Orioles player development put out on Twitter. It says showed good feel for barrel and can see spin. Swing goes direct to the ball. Fun to watch. Plays the game with good energy. Love that. Plus runner, aggressive on the bases. Will steal some bags. And then they have the video of him. And to me, this is the Aaron Estrada, Frederick Bencosme of this class. I think he's just going to be like super fun guy to watch. Switch hitter. Going to probably hit like 350 in the DSL this year or something like that. This is the guy that I'm like, all right, this is my guy. Other than obviously the two big names, everyone's going to love to follow them. But this is the guy where after I look for Martinez and Sanchez on the box score, I'm going straight to whether it's Newell or Brown, whichever one is listed on the box score.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just sticking with hitters right now, before, I don't know if you guys have comments about some of the pitchers, but which there actually weren't that many. But yeah, Newell, Brown, Jamon, my guy. I get it's like some of the grainy batting practice videos, maybe that I found, but it was just like holy barrels, man. This guy looks like I was not surprised to see him get $500,000. I thought this kid was going to get more, but he looks like someone who can already take a 95-mile-an-hour fastball up in on the hands and just drive it out to left field. I mean, send it over that wall at Camden Yards. Like, this kid looks jacked already. I noted as well, every year we look at, all right, who's going to go in that Frederick Bencosme path. I said it was Newell as well, that like if he's not challenged that much in the DSL this year, I would not be shocked at all to see this kid get FCL time by the end of the year. I do try to temper my expectations with the international signings because it's going to be so long and so many of these guys aren't even going to make it out of the academy. But like, I'm having a real hard time holding back my excitement there. The other one that Bob alluded to, the other $500,000 man, Elvin Garcia, again, another shortstop. And I was waiting for it. I was waiting to see how many times you see the comments online, like, how many shortstops do the Orioles need to sign? You already got Jackson Holiday and Gunnar, blah, blah, blah. It didn't take long. I think Steve Molesky was calling people out, like, it's okay. They're all shortstops at this stage of the game. But I highlighted Elvin Garcia's name here for future reference just because Ben Badler tagged him. He put out that article on signing day, 13 signings of it was like 500 signings. But he picked 13 guys who were going to get under $1 million, who have breakout potential. And in that write-up, he said he's a lanky, switch-hitting shortstop. Garcia has shown a knack for barreling balls against live pitching with a line drive approach and gap power, plus runner and good athlete with loose, fluid actions at the position, capable of making throws from different angles with a 60-grade arm. And, a million different variables that are going to impact these guys in their development. But Ben Badler, the man rarely misses. He's the best of the best when you're talking about this side of baseball. And if you go back and look at some of his write-ups on the Orioles system specifically, when he's talking about sleeper guys or picks to click, however he phrases it, he typically nails some of these picks. So I'm just highlighted the name Elvin Garcia there.
Yeah, the shortstop thing, that's funny. I was listening to Ben Badler's podcast on Baseball America, Future Projections, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He said, if you see someone listed at third base, we call that a first baseman over here. I thought that was funny. So yeah, of course, these are young kids. They're playing up the middle, catcher, center field, shortstop until they grow out of it. But while Jamon Newell, he looks like strong and incredibly smooth already. Garcia, you can see he's a switch hitter, but he's one that you could see he needs to grow into his body a little bit more. He looks a little baggy. The jersey's a little baggy. The swing looks like he needs to add a little bit of strength, but you can definitely see the potential if and when he does, and why he's a fan favorite as well. So yeah, like him too.
I think that the Orioles, I think a lot of teams target this type, but I think the Orioles clearly have a type with their position players on the international market, and it's these switch hitting shortstops with some physical projection, good line drive strokes. Maybe they show an advanced feel for the strike zone at a young age. Stockpile your system with it. My belief is if you stockpile your system with these guys, one of them's going to click. One of them's going to click and they're going to develop into a really good utility player. Or maybe you're the team that signs someone for under $1 million and develops that player into a starting shortstop, in which case that's great. That's not how it works out most of the time, but who's to say it's not going to work out with someone? So when the Orioles go after this type of player, I think there's a reason for it. And I was happy with both of those signings.
Yeah. I think too, I don't know if I have really any other hitter names. I just jotted down, I just got jotted down like more general. Like I feel like the outfielders specifically in this class are taller guys with just tons of physical projection. And I feel like in more recent classes, it was a lot of, the names are escaping me, but a lot more like athletic speedsters, not a lot of power, but like maybe if the hit tool clicks, they could be guys who find a path through this system. But I feel like this year they went possibly, there's the higher floor guys, but I really like a lot of the boom busts, like the high risk, high reward type guys that I think they brought in with this system. Angel Garcia was another one. That's kid's already all jacked. And I noted down one more name too, a catcher, Juan Adames Garcia, Venezuelan catcher. It wouldn't be a Kobe Perez signing class if he didn't land, I think, at least 2 Venezuelan catchers. But going off just straight vibes, this kid was ready for the cameras down there at the academy. And if his talent matches his swag, he is going to be a stud. And apparently he signed for $100K. So no decent bonus baby down there as well. But yeah, I'm always intrigued by these Venezuelan catchers because Kobe Perez has brought in a lot of them. And they seem to be holding their own down there in the lower levels of the minor leagues, at least.
Yeah, Angel Garcia, that was the one. I was like, he looks even bigger than Steven Martinez in this video, and he loves to dance in his free time. He's like the Venezuelan big power hitting right-handed outfielder. So, yeah, excited to see him as well. And now we can turn our attention to pitchers, which, like you said, there weren't many. I think there was only 4 out of the 19. But as we saw, and you mentioned the Houston Astros thing, like they're going to sign pitchers as the year goes on, and we've seen them grab these guys late in the class or even just midway through, and they pop up, and all of a sudden they're an interesting arm. So don't be worried that they don't draft pitchers and they don't sign them internationally. No, they're going to sign them.
I'd talk about the big guy, I guess. Literally the big guy first. Yaki Mondesir seems like the big name in this class among the pitchers. I feel like the Orioles were definitely a little more oddly specific this year in those write-ups, though. Like this guy said, I forget who it was, but they're like, this guy has potential for 14 to 20 home runs a year. It's like, you couldn't just say 15. Was that a typo? It's supposed to be 15. But like, what did the model spit out 14? And you're like, we're sticking to this model because we're the Orioles. He's going to hit 14 home runs at the major league level. But in Mondesir, it's like, this is a big-bodied kid. And they're like, yeah, he's a future bullpen arm, fastball, curveball guy. And I'm like, you turn literally everyone in this organization into a starter. Why are you taking the 16-year-old and already labeling him a reliever? I just thought that was weird. But with him, it was like, shout out to, I'm sorry, I'm sure you listen to this show, but he commented on Twitter on the video that we posted of Mondesir earlier that morning, Monday morning, and somebody had said, he looks just like Juan de los Santos. And I was like, you nailed it. You are, because I immediately got the same vibes. You are a fellow sicko. I love you. Shout out to, again, whoever that was who said Juan de los Santos comp when they saw this kid on Twitter. But I thought it was super accurate comp, at least physically. And maybe they saw what Juan de los Santos has done the last 2 years, and they were just like, this is a big kid as well. He's going to be a fastball curveball guy. We're going to skip the starter experiment, just throw him in the bullpen, and we'll see in Delmarva like next year. I don't know, but mid-90s fastball, big body kid. We'll see what he's got.
Yeah, I think the theme for the pitchers was power arms, throw hard, velocity, because Mondesir, I think he's already touching 94, 95 at 16 years old, 17 years old. Does definitely physically look like Juan de los Santos. I definitely see that. And then Esteban Mejia, who it says will clock 100 miles per hour with solid average pitches, throws strikes, great mound presence. Looks like I see some pretty decent off-speed pitches in this video. So I think that's like the one guy, if you're going to see like a breakout starting pitching prospect, it might be Mejia. So that's the one pitcher. Those two are obviously, I think, the top. And then there was another lefty and another righty. So we'll see what they turn out to be as well.
Yeah, Mejia is intriguing because he comes into the system with starter traits already now. With Mondesir, when you look at his size now and you look at his pitch mix, it does look like a future reliever, but I can't picture the Orioles deciding we're just going to stick a 16-year-old in the bullpen and see how quickly he gets to the major leagues. I'm sure at some point he's going to be in a rotation somewhere, whether it's in the Dominican Summer League this year, the FCL next year, or a full season ball level down the line. He's going to get the opportunity to start.
Yeah. Are you going to tell me the Orioles aren't going to try to teach a pitcher a sweeper, a changeup, or a hard slider? I think not. I would not be shocked if he ends up being a starter at the end of the day.
Yeah. Mejia is interesting because I saw that note by the Orioles player development account. It's like he can touch 100. It's like, all right. I'm not at first I was like, there's no way. This kid, he also looks probably like the skinniest pitcher they signed as well. Like there's no way he touches 100, but they've also signed some like 5 foot something guys out of Venezuela last year, Keeler Morphe. And I think he throws in the upper 90s as like a 16-year-old kid who's like 5 foot something. So the velo didn't shock me too much when I thought about it, but I'm wondering, he's obviously didn't get a ton of money. Again, we just said money isn't everything. I get that, but I think it was like 140K supposedly is what he signed for. If you're touching 100 and they're like, this is a potential mid-rotation arm, the only thing that scares me is like, can he throw a strike? Like if you can touch 100, you got all these good traits. Maybe the control is just wild right now, and hopefully, like we don't see huge walk totals from this guy. It's scary. It's kind of why I'm definitely. I will fight tooth and nail. I will argue until I'm blue in the face about this Orioles pitching development staff, but I'm oddly enough like much more subdued about the arms that they sign internationally, especially when I see like he's touching 100 miles an hour and didn't sign for a ton of money. I'm just hoping like it's not another like Junior Pena on our hands here. The guy can touch 100, 101, but he can't throw a strike to save his life. But, he's a 16-year-old kid. We'll see what happens over the next couple of years.
Maybe they came to the handshake agreement for that amount when he was like throwing 91, and they're like, we got you up to 100. I don't know, but yeah, that is definitely. And should we just schedule the Tommy John surgery now, or like a 16-year-old throwing 100 miles per hour doesn't sound great for the elbow?
Well, speaking of the subject Nick just touched on, the Orioles pitching development program, that's going to kind of be a theme of our next episode as we dive into the Orioles announcement of their major league coaching staff. In the meantime, you can check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok. Bob has threatened to make this list longer. So get ready for the moment that this takes 5 minutes for us to sign off on an episode. You can also check us out on Patreon and sign up now to have exclusive access to our Discord channels, as well as our top 50 prospects countdown. We're in the 40s right now, and we're going to be getting closer to 50 here, or number one, over the next few weeks. Orioles on the Verge is part of the Believe Podcast Network. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge.
Stay tuned. We are about to start now.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And we are going to discuss the Orioles announcement of their major league coaching staff tonight. The bulk of the coaching staff from their successful 2023 season is returning, along with a few new faces. And we're going to discuss that on tonight's episode. But just to kind of look back at some of the moves that preceded this, the Orioles announced fairly early in the offseason that Chris Holt was transitioning back to a previous role that's going to be more front office based, while Darren Holmes would not be returning. They later hired Drew French from the Atlanta Braves to be their new pitching coach at the major league level, and they've now rounded out the staff with a few new names. So, Bob, I'll start with you here. As you look at the coaching staff that the Orioles have announced, what jumps out at you?
Well, I was looking again, just double checking now. I do not see our buddy Justin Ramsey on here, but I think that's probably just because they really value what he's able to do in AAA to get these guys over that last hump. But the guy that is the assistant pitching coach is Mitch Plasmeyer, another exciting young, talented coach, and that's been with the Orioles for a little bit now. And yeah, exciting to just see someone so young, 28 years old, and he's a major league assistant pitching coach. And I'm assuming, will probably either be groomed to be Drew French, who's so old. I think he's like mid 30s, younger than me, but or to be potentially taken from us to get a pitching coach job somewhere else down the line. But for now, happy to have him. I know he's done a good job of just like roving around the minor leagues and helping guys out. And I think that's kind of what they've zeroed in on here. We saw last year with Cody Ashe, who was doing that for the hitters a little bit, and then he got the major league role. So like maybe just get accustomed to as many guys as possible, and he'll be a young face, familiar face in the bullpen and in the clubhouse for these young pitchers as they come up. And yeah, I think it's great. I love it. And I don't know. It's hard to really judge a coach's value, but we know how good the Orioles player development has been on the minor league side. So when they're promoted to the major league side, that makes me excited to see what they can do with more established players.
Plasmeyer, not the only name coming out of the Orioles player development system to join the major league staff this year, is Grant Anders, 27 years old, promoted to become the major league development analyst. Actually, that was his previous role. This coming year, he will be in the role of major league development coach. He was hired back before the 2020 season by the Orioles. And Nick, when you look at this, we've focused a lot over the years on sort of the continuity that the Orioles keep as the players go from level to level. How important do you think it is for guys like Plasmeyer and Anders to be in these roles?
I got a special shout out for Anders, as I learned a little bit more about him today. But Plasmeyer, I think just looking at him first, like in that continuity, that was my first thought when I saw Plasmeyer's name on the major league coaching staff graphic there. My first thought was, we're going to see more pitching prospects make their way up to the big leagues this year and get their shot, and not in like we don't need to add top end talent to the rotation because we're going to rely on prospect arms type of way. But we're going to see guys like trickle up, get some spot starts, get some relief outings, start to get their feet wet throughout this season. It is a 162 game season. Injuries are going to happen. These guys are going to get their opportunity. And, Bob touched on some of this as well. Like they brought up Ryan Fuller from AA right when the top hitters started finding their way to the big leagues. And then right as we're starting to look like, oh, we're going to get a big group of guys up to the majors, Cowser, Kerstad, possibly Kobe Mayo. Like there are all these other hitting prospects going to find their way up to the big leagues. Now they're adding Cody Ashe to the major league roster, their major league coaching staff. And it was like, he was, along with Anthony Villa, those two guys were traveling around 3 years ago. They were traveling around from affiliate to affiliate, and just kind of making sure like everybody's doing their thing, kind of working with everybody in the organization. So they're familiar with everybody. And now I think we're starting to see the pitching side of that with Plasmeyer. He was in that same kind of role just on the pitching side. He's worked with everybody at every level. So guys are familiar with him, and he knows like when they start making big league appearances, there's a familiar face there in the clubhouse with them. And he knows what makes them tick. He's going to know what can help them refocus, maybe like whatever the situation may call for. I just think like I kind of got the visual. I know my son started playing with these toys, like the gears, and you put them together and form these. And he's got this big wall of like gears, and then you crank the handle and they all start going together. It takes him a little while to get to that point. He gets really mad and usually throws half of them first, but eventually he gets it. So it's just like 50 gears all going together. Like, I feel like that's how the Orioles are running this organization. It's just all working together at different levels. And then, you're starting to see these guys, these instructors, analysts, whatever you want to call them, in their role, they're working with everybody in the organization for a couple of years, and then they bring them up to the major leagues. They get their feet wet, and then the prospects seem to follow them, and everybody already knows each other. And that continuity is there. That familiarity is there. I love it, honestly. That was my first thought. He earned this position for sure, but I love like how they're treating this coaching staff as well, not just the players in the organization.
And not to be like just swept over, Chris Holt is now, he was the major league pitching coach for years. Now he's going to be roving and telling people, hey, when you get here, this is what it's expected. I was literally there. Here's what's going to happen. So you're kind of prepping them in that way. And then when they get up here, I'm already comfortable. I already know Mitch. I already know what he expects of me. We've talked about this. So I just think there's a reason the Orioles have those soft factors going in their favor the last few years, as we've talked about, and fun clubhouse vibe. Everyone seems happy and comfortable. And I think this is, I don't know what percentage, but it seems like a decent reason why that could be the case.
I want to go back to a comment that Nick made earlier, which is that you have Plasmeyer at the major league level to prepare for that influx of young pitchers we're going to see in the major leagues. And before anybody says anything, we're not saying that because we don't think or don't want the Orioles to acquire a top-end starter this offseason. But let's face it, if you're going to get through a major league season, you're going to need reinforcements out of your minor league level. And so, Nick, I want to go back to that point a little bit. How much, do you think Plasmeyer's importance comes into play when you consider that if a pitcher does come up, they're likely going to be coming up for a meaningful game because the Orioles are expecting to compete. So you come up to start the second game of a doubleheader, or you come up because the bullpen's tired and you need a set of fresh arms. How helpful do you think it is to have the guy who's familiar with you in Plasmeyer, but then someone in Drew Frentz who has been with a winning organization, been with a team that won a World Series, help you adjust that major league, help you adjust the major league level?
Yeah. It's like they're covering the Orioles. They're covering all their bases here as far as like, and again, not to take anything away at all from Plasmeyer. He has earned his role. He's got a fantastic resume. I'm sure we're going to see him as some team's pitching coach in the very near future. Someone else is going to poach him. I'm waiting for the moment where he's like, so-and-so organization has hired Buck Britton to be there, whatever, at the major league level. Like, these guys are going to start getting poached very soon. Not just the coaches, but some of these analysts and everything. But at the same time, like you said, French has been there. He's done it. He's established. He's experienced. And I feel, I don't know. I think I was going to make a point, and I'm like, I don't like that point. But I just feel like they're covering all their bases here, in that you've got the experience, but you've also got like that emotional support as well. And just because we've seen it with guys like Grayson Rodriguez, right? He struggled. They had to send him back down to Norfolk. I feel like French doesn't know these guys inside and out. Yes, he can be a mastermind pitching coach. Hopefully he is. But he doesn't know the ins and outs of all these guys quite yet, especially the younger prospects. And so like when Chase McDermott comes up, McDermott's worked with Plasmeyer for the last year and a half. Justin Armbruster's worked with Plasmeyer for the last 2 years. And so when he comes up, like they know, like I said earlier, they know exactly like how each other, like what makes each other tick, both sides. Because one other thing we know about this organization, it is a two-way street of communication between the coaches and the players. I go back to the Drew Rahm interview when he was on, and he was like, hey, I want to do this crazy thing with like this pitch or whatever, start throwing this pitch. And they were like, let's talk about it. Let's work on this. Let's do that. They listen both ways. And so I feel like Plasmeyer can definitely be like that first listening ear for a lot of these guys. And you talk about like Brandon Hyde being the manager, right? How much of an impact do managers make in a baseball game? I think that's debatable, I feel like. But I feel like once you get to the playoffs, there are these certain tiny little edges that can give you an advantage, specifically in the playoffs or in a close series. And I don't know. I just get the sense like these tiny little edges like that are going to add up and help this team continue to grow and develop at the major league level. Because once again, development doesn't stop once you graduate from the minor leagues. It continues when you're in the majors.
This episode is all about pissing off Orioles Twitter, apparently, because do not tell them that the manager doesn't matter. How else are they going to blame every loss on Brandon Hyde? I mean, come on.
So, Nick, you
It's-
said earlier you had something you want to talk about with Grant Anders. Would that happen to be about Radford, Virginia?
Yeah, fellow Virginian, good Virginian boy. Like, I know I'm getting older, but I'm starting to accept it. But Anders graduated from Radford in 2018, which is just mind blowing. This guy graduates from Radford in 2018. He didn't play for Radford, but he was the director of baseball operations for I'm going to give them their flowers. It is a very good Radford team. Shout out to the Highlanders. Shout out Alex Guerra, their head coach. I hope they have a great year. Then he went to Arizona State for grad school in 2019 and was immediately hired to be the development coach for Bowie in 2020, which we know that season didn't happen, but still, fresh out of grad school, like, here's the top farm system in baseball. Go be an analyst for our AA level. And now 2024 season's getting ready to start, and he's on the major league staff. Like, I just think, I've said this before, I'm going to keep saying it, like, Andy Koska, Daniel Allentuck, John Muley, where are you guys at? I need deep dive, good profiles on some of these coaches. I think they deserve it because this guy must have a fascinating story to his career path as quickly as he got to the big leagues and the path that he took to get to the big leagues. I think is awesome and really interesting. And clearly, Orioles are nailing not only these, we just talked about the young international signings and the young draft picks, they're nailing these young coaches and analysts they bring into the organization. They're flying up the ranks, getting to the major leagues and being really successful here in Baltimore.
Yeah, clearly a guy 27 years old, like all the stuff you just said about him. Clearly this guy is just super smart and super useful to this organization. They see the value and they're like, well, why are we going to just drag this out and have him go level to level like he's a pitching prospect? No, let's get him right to the majors and let's have him help us out in the major leagues. We need that now. We are a contender now. We want the smartest people in the clubhouse, in the building at the right time. Yeah, I don't know much about him in particular, but it just speaks so loudly because there's so many qualified people, coaches in our organization and outside of our organization that they could have gone and got, but they saw this young kid and they see the potential and they're like, we're doing this right now. And I just think that speaks volumes.
Yeah, as we talk about this, I'm reminded that really the best example of the Orioles' approach to filling out their major league staff and the success that they've been able to have in that is Ryan Fuller and Matt Fork-Salty as the two hitting coaches. They will be back for their third seasons in that role. Fuller had been a minor league coach with the Orioles for a few years before that. We actually had a chance to interview him back in 2021 when he was with the Bowie Bay Sox. Since we have a moment to talk about it, Bob, any thoughts on the work that those two have done and how instrumental they've been in the Orioles' success at the major league level, and the fact that the Orioles turned the page after these two guys joined the major league staff? I don't think it's a coincidence.
Not at all. I think you saw in 2022 a little bit of a slow start. I think you saw the pains of, that was the strike year, right? And where was that? I think 2022. Yeah. I think you saw the shortened spring training and the effect that had. They couldn't contact people outside in the off season until a certain date. The spring training was shortened, a little bit shorter, and you saw them get off to a slow start, as the Orioles did as well. And then from the time Adley came up from mid-May, just say June on, it seemed like the offense got the vibes and got on the same path. They leveled their swing path out and they got things going. And then last year, I feel like the offense it wasn't top of the league, but for a bunch of guys that we didn't really have any true sluggers. Like you didn't have a Kobe Mayo or Samuel Basayo yet hitting 30 to 40 home runs a year. But I feel like they were able to really limit the long stretches of just dreadful hitting. The slumps seem shorter. I don't know. I haven't gone back and looked at the thing, but I can see, having talked to them both on the show, I can see the impact they had for sure. To get Austin Hayes in the first half of the past couple of years to be on top of his game. They got Ramon Arias hitting the ball harder, lifting the ball in 2022, not so much in 2023. I'm just still really confident in these guys as hitting coaches.
Yeah, the program is working. Like I don't think there's any denying that. Maybe the specific talent that's in the organization can be upgraded at certain spots, But as far as like the program, I mean, you look at some of the I'm gonna say worst guys on the roster. Like they're still great players in their own right and serve different roles. But like Jorge Mateo, yeah, his overall numbers last year didn't look great, but he had a stretch there where he was one of the hottest hitters in Major League Baseball, right? And there was a lot of stories and a lot of credit to the work that Ryan Fuller and Brooke Schulte were doing with him. We talked about Santander a lot this offseason and his growth. Ryan Mountcastle. I mean, Ryan Mountcastle, I know he had the vertigo issue, so you can kind of, his stats are kind of a little wonky there because of the missing all the time due to vertigo. And I'm sure when he came back, he still clearly wasn't right for a while, but the walks are trending up. You look at the last 3 years, the walks are going up, the strikeouts are going way down. And he had a phenomenal run there once it was very clear that he's fully healthy and past the vertigo issue. Ryan O'Hearn came out of nowhere, joins this ball club, and was one of the most, I think, let's say not influential, one of the most critical members, I think, of this roster last year. Jordan Westburg gets to the majors and doesn't really miss a beat. I don't think he kind of wowed you in any way, but he didn't have those prolonged slumps, and he was just solid when he was up. I mean, we can go on and on and on about guys in the major leagues who have turned a corner, and yeah, like guys like Mateo, it wasn't for an extended period where we're saying, you got to push him off shortstop. You got to push him out of the starting lineup. It's like, he can please take him out of the lineup at this point, but they're still like had small wins with a lot of these guys last year. I'm anxious to see as some more of the top prospects come up and get more comfortable. Guys like Kauser, Kerstad, if one or both stick on this organization, what they can do next year in their first full seasons, hopefully. And then as the Orioles maybe start to bring in some bigger talent to replace guys like Mateo and, O'Hearn and some other guys, like what is that going to look like? Because a lot of big wins, I think, as far as the hitting goes at the major league level.
Jordan Westburg had a 7% walk rate in his rookie season, which I don't think is insignificant at all. Yeah, I tend to toss out the strikeout to walk numbers that first year just because the players have to make that adjustment to the major league level. And I think that when you're a rookie, and this goes for hitters and pitchers, you're not getting the close calls that you got in the minor leagues. When you have the human element with umpires, it's still part of Major League Baseball in most levels of the minors. But the fact that Westburg came up and, as Nick said, never had a prolonged slump, which is something you saw a lot of in the minor leagues, and had a walk rate of 7%. The strikeout totals were kind of in line with what we've seen from him in the minors. To me, that bodes well for him, maybe not breaking out with huge numbers in 2024, but being able to go into next year knowing what works for him, building on that, and having a better season.
Yeah, I think he could be, which is why it would be nice to find a suitor for Ramon Urias, because I feel like Westburg could easily be like the better, younger, more athletic version of Urias, who can also probably play left field at Camden Yards. I mean, he's a really good athlete. His defense at second base was great, but yeah, offensively, like you said, I fully expected him to come up and slump for at least a couple of weeks, just because that's kind of been his MO as he came up through the minors. But no, he did not miss a beat at all. I mean, he was pretty much plateau as far as like his numbers and his time at the majors. And that was really good to see, because I know he's going to go into this offseason. I'm sure he's been working hard, and he's going to be definitely like a little bit better. I think you're going to see more of that power in game in 2024.
We'll wrap this here.
So,
go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say one more topic. Brandon Hyde. Let's get into it. No. Let's start with Brandon Hyde. No, I just think it's really cool. We haven't really seen that much turnover the last couple of years either. I think I'm sure we talked about it. I kind of assumed this was going to happen. And I know a lot of other people have, social media conversations or whatever, have kind of assumed that once the Orioles were good again, that we'd see turnover. We'd see a new manager, maybe an older, more experienced manager to lead the way. And Brandon Hyde was the fall guy. He took the grenade when this team was really bad, and then he'd be gone. And that's clearly not the case. Like even the base coaches, they're returning. I mean, it's very little turnover on this major league staff, and the guy in charge of it all at the top, Brandon Hyde, is still here. And I don't see him going away anytime soon, to be honest. And I hope he doesn't.
Yeah, me either. And I've really expected Freddie Gonzalez to like be like, all right, my time here is done. Buck Britton, you're up. But no, he wants to stick around. It must be just you heard about the clubhouse is great for the players. They all get along. These coaches must be a similar thing. They must work really well together, enjoy it, because no one's really leaving. We saw Darren Holmes left. Chris Holt was just switched his role, but a lot of continuity. And I think that's a good thing until they start poaching us.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brandon Hyde, deserving of manager of the year last year. Excited to see him build on that in 2024. And with that, that does it for this look at the Major League coaching staff. We will be back next week with a rundown of some of the top 100 prospect lists that have been released recently. As they have over the last few off seasons, the Orioles are dominating those lists. We'll talk about that more and possibly other news next week. In the meantime, you can check us out on the multitude of social media channels we have, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Threads. We are also over at Substack, oriolesontheverge.substack.com. And while you're at it, join our Patreon community for as little as $3 a month. You can have access to our exclusive Discord channels for patrons. And then at the $5 and $10 levels, you will have access to our bonus daily coverage, which right now consists of our top 50 prospects countdown, which are being released day by day. You will not want to miss that. Orioles on the Verge is part of the Believe Podcast Network. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge.
Thinking about starting a Mastodon.